that the New York that there's a team out there more so than the Jets that need to nail this draft. Now, there's a few close seconds, and I'll incorporate them, right? But if you look at, see, the Jets are battling a couple different things here. Number one, they're battling this disgusting, just hemorrhaging from gory past and history. So that's what we deal with, the fans. I don't know that Joe Douglas is necessarily thinking about that, and I'm quite sure Rob Saleh, the new head coach, who I love, is not going to be thinking that. But we're thinking that. The fans are thinking that, right? That's number one. So you made the decision. The Jets made the decision to move away from a young player who, I like Sam Darnold. The Panthers obviously like Sam Darnold. A lot of people I respect, guys like Dan Orlovsky, a lot of others, they like Sam Darnold. They made a very tough decision to do that, all right? They traded Sam Darnold. Okay. So not only did they make that tough decision, but now they're drafting a player that's got a huge ceiling and a lot of bust factor in Zach Wilson, who, for the record, I like certainly over Mac Jones. I like him over everybody but Trevor Lawrence, but still doesn't mean that he can't bust. Now, when we talk about pressure, right, that thickness, that palpable heaviness as you get ready to do something, it can't be thicker anywhere than it is right now with the Jets. And let me give you a little more reasons, a few more reasons why. Number one, longest active playoff drought in the NFL. Who is it? Raise your hand if you think you know. Take a guess. You don't have to be Aaron Rodgers doing Jeopardy to know this based on what I'm opening the show with. It's the Jets. 10 years, right? So the Jets have not made the playoffs in 10 years. They've had 3 GMs in the last 7 years. You're talking about Idzik, who was horrendous, McCagnon, who was terrible, and Joe Douglas, who I think is going to be really good. At least I hope, and I do think he's going to be good. Just based on some early returns, the Jamal Adams trade, I like that. Don't know if I love the Darnold trade, but I'm certainly open to it. See where we go with that. I think he's done a nice job scooting back on previous drafts and getting some equity, which enables him eventually to move up a few spots. And I don't mean from 2 to 1, but in other spots, maybe 23, up a few spots, or from the second round to the back end of the first, to secure a player like the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson years ago, to make sure you give yourself a chance to get that that fifth-year option. Bottom line, though, you look at all the players they whiffed on, and, excluding Becton, who was drafted by Douglas, which makes you feel good, and Quinnen Williams, who is going to be awesome as well. So their recent draft portfolio is pretty good. But you go back, D-Cell, listen to these names. Quentin Coples, D. Milner, Sheldon Richardson, Calvin Pryor, Leonard Williams, Darren Lee from USC, Jamal Adams, obviously gone, Sam Darnold. Outside of their last 2 drafts from 08, 09, pick a year, up until 2018, not a single first-round pick on the entire roster. So not only did they whiff on quarterbacks, but they whiff on everything else. And I look at this draft board, right? And, you could get deeper in the weeds and start going into like the mid-teens and early 20s as well. But for the purpose of this conversation, the most pressure this draft. So the Jaguars had the first overall pick. They almost got to the Super Bowl a couple of years. And they've got Trevor Lawrence. You're okay. The Jets are number 2. I'm going to put them aside for a minute. The Niners. Now, okay, there is definite pressure for the Niners to get this right because of what they did to scoot all the way up to number 3. No question. And now the reports are that it's either Lance or Mac Jones, right? Where Justin Fields is not in their, not on their board, not in their war at all. The most recent reports, if you missed it, it's going to be either Mac Jones, and that's what I think, I wouldn't do it, or Trey Lance, and that's what my partner Tiki's been saying for weeks, and he very well might be right on that. If he's right on that, that's going to turn out to be an awesome call by Tiki, because Tiki said that probably as far, I keep saying a few weeks at this point, and it's probably close to a month, all right? So the Niners, aggressively, you got to get the quarterback spot right. But even if they whiff, say if they take Mac Jones and he stinks, or they take Trey Lance and he can't play, the Niners were just in the Super Bowl, okay? So different level of pressure. Who's picking 4? Falcons. Now, we'll get to Julio Jones coming up next segment. They could trade out. I would still roll with Matt Ryan for a little bit. But they have at least given their fans a franchise quarterback, 3rd overall pick back. I guess that would have been 08, whatever it was. Won an MVP, got them to a Super Bowl, one they should have won. Like, at least the Falcons have given their fans, I know the last couple of years have been lean, part of the reason why they're picking 4, but the Falcons have not been, destitute in terms of their draft board or their win total like the Jets, all right? Number 5, Bengals. That's an important spot, but you got Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow's terrific. Miami. It's another team that hasn't won a lot, but if you look at what the returns were a year ago, everybody thinks, including me, that they're certainly going in the right direction. And I don't really believe necessarily in Tua as much as my partner or as much as some others. I think there's equal detractors versus supporters for Tua. But there's pressure in Miami, not as thick as the Jets. Detroit, it's a complete start over, complete rebuild, and there's pressure with that, but different. Traded Stafford at the right time. It's very hard to knock them in the court of public. Nobody can sit there and say, well, you can, you'd be wrong, but nobody could sit there and say, what an egregious mistake, trading Matthew Stafford. No, Tiki and I have been saying this for 2 years. It just wasn't plausible because of the salary cap hit. So Detroit gets another year or so pass, right? You get to Carolina, offensive weapons, a head coach everybody likes, an owner who's spending money. They get Darnold. We'll see what happens there. Then you get to Denver, who has an active playoff-less streak of 4, like the Giants and a few others. But at least they were in a Super Bowl and they won it. It's almost a decade. But the point is, and Dallas at number 10. And there's always pressure in Dallas, but different types of pressure. I don't know how any team that writes a name on a placard has more urgency to connect, more so than the New York Jets. You can't convince me otherwise. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you think. I don't care how much football you know. I don't care what team you root for. I mean, you've had a bevy of GMs in my lifetime. Now, I'm not going to go into Jets rant mode. There's no need to. But you've seen them over the years. In my lifetime, my existence, I'm in my mid-40s, my life. Never have the Jets had a franchise quarterback. Never, right? So then you mix in, myriad draft mistakes that I ran through, the Quentin Copels and the Darren Lees and the D. Milliners and all those guys that didn't work out for well over a decade. Nobody's even on the roster. Come on. How many more head coaches are you going to recycle? How many more GMs are you going to recycle? How many more times are you going to have that revolving door at quarterback? It is time. It is time for the Jets to just, and I don't mean hit like an opposite field double, like a little blooper, not a blooper, like a little looper. Looper's better than a blooper, you know what I mean? Like a blooper's kind of like, a looper's more, it's not exactly 110 on the exit velo scale, but it's going to bounce to the wall after, on 5 or 6 hops. It's going to get you 2-bagger. I don't even want that. Jets got to hit a home run. They sell. Can you think about this? If they miss on this, if they miss on Zach Wilson, if he's not the guy, or even if he is the guy, and they fail to, what I always say, what's my term, properly insulate the quarterback like they did with Darnold, then I just don't know where you go at this point because, when Gase was hired, it was roundly criticized. I said give him a shot. At the very least, Darnold can't be worse off than he was when, before Gase walked in the door, because at least Gase is an offensive mind and he's somewhat innovative and he's going to at least, put the needle in the right direction for the quarterback. And even if you have to fire Adam Gase, then at least the quarterback should be ready to roll with the next head coach. They're both gone. How many times can you try to galvanize a fan base and miss? And miss colossally. And in this instance, and again, I don't think they're going to miss on Zach. I think Zach Wilson's going to be really good. And more importantly, I think they've got a really smart head coach with league-wide contacts and a good GM. And that's the starting point. Even more than the quarterback, you got to start with that. And I think I'm confident the Jets actually have that. But imagine if Wilson just isn't that good or they fail him. Think about, and God forbid Darnold flourishes. Oh, jeez. Matt Rule, Sam Darnold next season, 3,692 yards, 29 touchdowns, 11 picks, 5 rushing touchdowns, 375 yards rushing on the ground. Darnold, Pro Bowler, like an alternate. It wouldn't stun me with the weaponry, right? So between the desire, the need, the absolute need to finally get a franchise quarterback, 1. Number 2, Jets better hope Darnold doesn't do well, all right? Number 2. Number 3, think about what they bypassed. Now, this was an organizational decision, and I've always said, remain married to your conviction. If it's unpopular in the court of public opinion, that's fine, as long as you're ultimately proven right. If you've got thick skin and you could take those hits on social media, everybody, straight out of the 2 spot and keep Darnold. And I was somewhat subscribing to that for a long time. Take Penei Sewell and have two bookends with Becton and Sewell, or trade down to 10 and get a receiver. I mean, so many different machinations we've run through with this. If they whiff on the quarterback and all that draft equity that they left on the table, because think about what the Niners gave up to get to number 3. Imagine what you could have gotten to get to number 2 and have your choice of everybody but Trevor Lawrence. Think about that. There is no team with more pressure than the Jets. And, I'm open to listen, and then I'll shoot it down because there's nobody that's convincing me otherwise. D-Cell, you want to give it a stab? Would you like to be the first one shot down today, D-Cell? Little batting practice on my great engineer? What do you got? Come on.
I could try to spin it. I don't know if I'll believe it myself, but I could try to spin it for you.
Let me hear it.
I would say already Joe Douglas, check. Rob Salah, check. They're expected to draft Zach Wilson, so there won't be head scratching as in, what did the Jets do at number 2? Why did they go in that direction? I think the Jets have a plan, so if they stick to their plan, and if Zach Wilson turns out to be not the guy, I don't think that there will be quote-unquote backlash for it. If he doesn't pop, he doesn't pop. I think the Jets are setting up to not fail Zach Wilson like they did Sam Darnold.
I agree with that, but you're leaving out the other part of the equation. What if Sam Darnold pops, and what if Zach Wilson fizzles? And think about all that draft stuff you left on the board. So you willingly, not like somebody left in free agency, you willingly booted Darnold out the building for this player. If, and again, I believe Wilson will be good. I'm saying if. And then if the player you bring in drowns and Darnold flourishes, and you left multiple first-round picks on the board, I mean, Joe Douglas will not recover from that. Let's get that straight. Again, nice pick with Becton. Good job. Okay, here we go. If Joe Douglas is not right with Zach Wilson, then Joe Douglas will not last as Jets GM. Period. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.